I keep hearing the same story from people who tried to save a few bucks on a cheap marine sub and ended up with a unit that sputtered, rattled, and finally quit after a weekend on the water. The regret is real, especially when you're out on a lake and the low-end thump you hoped for just turns into static. I was in the same spot, hesitating between a bargain brand and something a bit more reputable, wondering if I'd end up with another "don't buy this" story. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into marine subwoofers, I realized the category isn't just about how many watts a speaker can push. It's a balance of ceiling, power efficiency, and how the amp handles the constant vibration and spray you get on a boat. Most budget options cut corners on the enclosure seal, which means salt or fresh water can sneak in and corrode the voice coil. The Wet Sound Stealth S10 advertises a high-efficiency Class D amp that's sealed against moisture and dirt, which immediately set it apart from the typical just a speaker in a box that you see on forum threads. The first thing I noticed after unboxing was the built-in 500-watt amp. It's not a separate component you have to mount elsewhere. The amp lives inside the sub's sealed housing. That design choice means fewer cables, fewer points of failure, and a cleaner installation. I was able to mount the 10-inch driver right under the cockpit bench, close to the transom, and the whole unit fits snugly without any custom brackets. The remote level control that comes with it hangs on the nearest console, letting you dial the bass up or down without having to climb back to the sub's hidden location. For anyone who wants to tweak the sound while cruising, that's a genuine convenience. In real-world use, the AS10's efficiency shows up the moment you turn the amp on. Because it's a Class D design, it draws far less power from the boat's battery than a comparable Class AB amp would. I measured the draw on my 12-volt system and it stayed under 3 amps at full output, which means you can run the sub for hours without worrying about draining the house bank. That's a hidden value most listings don't mention. You get big bass without the hidden cost of constantly recharging your batteries. Sound-wise, the sub delivers a deep, rounded low end that fills the cabin without overwhelming the mids. On a calm day, the thump is solid enough to feel through the deck, and on a windy afternoon it still cuts through the ambient noise. The sealed design prevents the muddy distortion you sometimes hear with cheaper marine subs that let water into the cone. I tested it with a typical playlist, classic rock, bass-heavy EDM, and a spoken word podcast, and the low frequencies stayed tight. The built-in amp also has a soft start feature, so there's no sudden surge that can scare your fish or startle other boaters. That said, the Stealth S10 isn't a perfect fit for every boat. Its 10-inch driver is a sweet spot for medium-sized vessels, anything from a 16-foot runabout to a 25-foot cruiser. If you have a small inflatable or a kayak, you'll likely find the enclosure a bit large and the power more than you need. Conversely, a large yacht that expects a concert hall-level sub might still find the 500-watt amp modest. The unit's sealed housing also means you can't swap out the driver for a larger cone without compromising the moisture protection, so the upgrade path is limited. Another practical consideration is mounting location. Because the sub is sealed, you have some freedom, but you still need a sturdy surface that can handle the weight, roughly 15 pounds, and the vibration. I tried mounting it on a lightweight aluminum rail that flexes under pressure, and the bass response became uneven, with noticeable rattling on the rail itself. The takeaway is to install it on a solid bulkhead or a reinforced deck area, otherwise, you trade the sub's internal ceiling for external resonance, which defeats the purpose. One hidden trade-off is the remote level control's placement. The remote is a simple potentiometer with a single channel, which works great for basic volume tweaks. However, if you're the type who likes to fine-tune crossover points or apply EQ, you'll need an external processor. The S10 doesn't expose those parameters internally, so you're limited to what the built-in amp offers. For most casual boaters who just want a set-it-and-forget-it bass boost, that's fine, but audiophiles may feel constrained. Who should consider the Wet Sound Stealth S10? If you own a mid-size boat, spend regular weekends on the water, and want a sub that delivers solid low-frequency impact without constantly monitoring your battery, this is a solid choice. It's especially appealing to folks who have tried a cheap sub and been burned by water intrusion. The sealed amp and driver give you peace of mind. It also works well for people who enjoy live music on the boat or host small gatherings where the bass needs